to the Talkback after tonight's performance of Dog Sees God um, by Barview Royal, presented by SUNY Oswego. My name is Sammy Digamus, and I will be your host along with Rachel. We work as dramaturgs on this production. For those of you who don't know what dramaturgy is, it's dramaturgs kind of offer insight and research on historical context behind the show. And tonight we'll be having a short conversation to give insight into the world of the play. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. Joining me tonight, we have some other fellow student artists who worked on this show as well. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Giovanni Ayala Martinez, and I am the director.
Hi, I'm Nick Sweet. I played CB.
Hi, I'm Abigail Hines, and I was Van's sister.
Hi, I'm Shai Sims. I was Marcy and the art director.
And I'm Rachel Monson. I'm here helping Sammy co-host.
I guess I'll start with the first question. Obviously, this show has very hard topics to talk about. For you guys personally, which topic was the most difficult to portray?
For me, it was the topic of Beethoven's suicide. Recently, I've gone through a lot of death in my family. My grandfather passed away a little bit before the show, and while I know that's like a totally different thing, it was still something, as like he's probably the first member of my immediate family that died. And you know, it's hard going through like these stages of grief when someone you loved, suddenly they're never there again, and you kind of have to just be able to move on with it.
For me, it was dealing with a dead student, because when I was in middle school, I had a student die, and it was very like, wow, I'm a kid. How is another kid like dead? That's kind of weird. So having to like kind of relive being in a school and like knowing that a student was dead was kind of like, oof.
Okay. I don't have any like personal connections with any of this, but definitely dealing or like researching abortion for my character specifically. It's definitely a hard topic to look into in reading up on people's experiences with that, and it's hard.
For me, I would have to say doing CB's coming out or coming to like realize his identity. I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. As being a gay man, like I have my own coming out story, just like so many other people have coming out stories of their own. And I wanted to make CB's journey as comforting and authentic as I could. Because who knows who's watching? Who knows if this is gonna make them think like, oh wow, there's more people like me. I'm not alone, and you aren't alone if you're watching and you think you are. And I hope I was able to send that message.
Thank you guys so much. Can you speak about the process of developing this production online? Like, what steps did you take? Any hurdles that came up, and how did you deal with those?
Yeah, I'll take that one head on. Creating this production, moving it to an online format was really challenging. We I wasn't trained, none of us were trained to do online theater. And this is a completely student-run production, student creative, and we had mentors from this faculty who were great. And we kind of had to take it in stride. Every day was a new challenge. When things came down to the wire, a lot of things popped up that we didn't realize would pop up because it's a live stream like recording, and we actually had to pivot because originally our first way to go about this was doing a live stream and the actors were going to be acting at the same time as you guys were receiving it, but the facilities just weren't up to par, and the computer that we were using just couldn't handle it. So we had to pivot last minute to a recording, and that was just a very stressful process on everyone, I feel. But you know what? We powered through. The difficult side that I love Shy to speak on is the cartooning aspect of the show, because we can't be physical with each other and they can't be interacting in the same space. So that's when I thought about the idea of cartooning, and we found Shy Sims, who also was in the cast, and they did an amazing job cartooning the backgrounds, the interactions, moments that we couldn't do because of COVID. And like the show wouldn't have happened without them, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I was one of those theater nerds who watched a lot of animatics to like the musical songs. So I was like, I will implement that to the theater we're doing. And so it started off with a bunch of sketches. But the thing is that art takes so long. So it was a hurdle trying to get over doing the art, but also having enough time to pay attention during rehearsals so that I can get into character properly. And that stepped on sleep a bit. So it's all about timing with online theater, and that's something that we all had to like learn and deal with as the show went on.
It seems like we have a question from the chat. Kelly asked, how did the cast get into these characters? Did they have specific rituals or rules that helped them? And did you guys do any research on your characters?
I can take that one first. In terms of me for getting into character, something that I worked on with our assistant director Maria and Gio was being able to imagine the circumstances that I am in before each scene, and that helped me out a lot with figuring out what emotional state I'm in, where I'm coming from, how I'm going to tackle each scene, and that was a big help being able to learn this skill throughout the show. And in terms of like character development and like research, I watched the Peanuts movie, I watched a lot of the Peanuts shorts, read some of the comics, and I really tried to take like some of that classic Charlie Brown and put him in there. With like I have the one line "good grief," and I tried to make that feel as much like the classic as possible while still staying true to like the Dog Sees God version of the character.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I agree with what Nick said. Reading a lot of the cartoons and having Van's sister only having one scene, there was a lot that we could play around with in terms of how she acts and her relationship with CB, and definitely just taking from the comics, like you can see like how great friends that they were, even though she was kind of mean to him. So being able to keep that playfulness while showing that they dated in high school, so you date your best friend, and just keeping that funness to it was really interesting. Yeah.
I agree with Nick and Abby. I did do a lot of rewatching old Peanuts cartoons and reading some of the comics, and like anytime Trisha would say anything rude to Marcy, I would think back to like all the history they had together as children, and it's like, that's why I'm still her friend, even though she's a bitch. That's why I'm still her friend. And it helped a lot because like, personally for me, I don't really stick with people once they start showing me like their true colors, but Marcy's a bit different than me, and I can't like merge my personal into my character. So it was very helpful to think about the ties that keep people together.
The connections that we see on screen are absolutely great. Did you guys ever get to rehearse in the same room, or was it always distanced and online?
There were a few times during rehearsals where we had socially distant meetings. We had screens in the room. We were able to do some acting exercises together, and some talking about the scenes. Actually being in person, which I really think helped develop the connection online. Because like once you have that once you have that connection between the two in person, you can translate that easily to online. So what we did in person was very helpful.
It also helped that all of the cast members were already friends prior to the show, so we already had that like deep connection. It was just awesome to work with our friends.
I agree. Being able to work with friends and, feel their energy even if they aren't there, or having the opportunity to have acted with them before in another show, which definitely, for me and Nick, we've done a show together before, so we felt like we still had that connection of like, okay, we can still play off of each other and still have that like best friendship kind of connection, even though we're still online.
Yeah, building connections, all of them, great job. They did amazing. I think I saw it from like when I was casting the show. All these actors in their auditions had like a sense of connection over Zoom, over in that room, in that space. And it was like that was one of the key things I was looking for. People who make choices, have set objectives. They were able to make characters, even in those little moment monologues that they were doing. And all the actors just killed it on that end. And at some points when it was rocky, they were still able to connect. And at the end of the day, they were still able to figure out a way to make their characters hear each other on through the computer screen.
It looks like there was a question for me and Rachel, and it was, what was it like being a dramaturg on this show? For me, I really am, I really like history and like finding out the context between everything. And like, for one of the things, like for my class, I even wrote a paper on like gay slurs. So it was a fun aspect to learn about, and learning about little things that like affected each character. That was pretty interesting.
For me, I am relatively new to the theater department here on campus, and so getting to work with a group of 9 other dramaturgs, it was just absolutely incredible, and it really just helped me feel like I was part of a larger community.
Um, Another question from chat. How was working with your scene partner over Zoom? Many of these scenes felt like it was in the same space. For example, the scene with CP and Van's sister really connected and felt natural.
Okay. I'll start. Well, Nick and I, when we started really getting into rehearsals this semester, we sat down. We're like, okay, how do we want to do this? Because we have one scene. We got to make it as great as it can be. So we scheduled a time every day, and we would run our scene once or twice, and then we'd also go to rehearsal and be like, Gio, we like did this in our scene today, and like it was really fun. On top of that, when we did the show last year together, just being able to connect through that, we're like, we've got this, like, we're gonna take online theater down by already having that connection together as 2 actors. I think it just felt really natural, so I wasn't too worried going into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Just like the repetition, the amount of times we just did this and worked on just adding things into the scene, like seeing what we can add, like following the impulse. There were a lot of like little like things I would add to the scene. Like there's one point where I go red rum, or no, I go be serious. That's the line. And it was just like little impulses that didn't come till later on. Like it's all due to this like repetition of go again and again, and just like really getting involved in the scene and staying engaged.
What helped me a lot was the listening and responding exercises we did, because you're angled kind of weird when you're doing a Zoom production. You can't look at the camera, therefore you can't really see your scene partner. You have to kind of look away from it. So hearing their voices and like just being able to picture their face was great. And then if I'm listening, like you don't, whenever I'm sitting down for an everyday conversation and someone brings up like a sandwich in between their sentence, I'll stop for a second and be like, sandwich, okay, I like ham sandwiches. So I made sure like Marcy would have those little ticks where someone would say something and would get her into like an inner monologue, so that if she responded, it felt natural. And I'm glad that bounced off.
Okay, we have another question from the chat that comes from Maria. They say, it's hard working on a show. Is it hard working on a show and being a student? How did you guys take care of yourselves and your mental health?
I think go ahead. I think it's really hard being a student and working on a show. In my position, I was a full-time student. I worked like almost a full-time job some weeks. I was working between like 30 and 25 hours a week, early mornings, late nights, and meetings in between. It's like some days I'd have like 1 hour to myself and I'd be like, oh, I guess I should sit down and eat, because if not, I won't have any of the time later and I have to fit it into somewhere else. It's a hard thing to do for anyone. And I like, but this experience has also made me so much stronger. And it's like, oh, if I can do this, I can handle the real world. It's like, I'm ready. It really was like a culminating moment for me since I'm a senior and this will be my last show at SUNY Oswego. And I'm like really proud of how it all came together. And counseling, go to the counseling services on campus, the counseling service center. Oh my gosh, I had a counselor the whole entire time of the show. She is amazing. She helped me through so much. She really just is a wonderful human. So talk to someone, everyone. Even if you feel like you have nothing going on, nothing wrong with you, just chat with a counselor. Even if it's like a one-time session, just have a chat, because I promise you'll go out of there feeling 10 times better about yourself, because there's so many things that we just construe about ourselves, and we like make these little conspiracy theories about ourselves, and we're like, oh my God, just stop. But yeah, getting over it and moving past it, just like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I agree with Geo. Counseling here is great, and I also had a counselor during the whole process, and it's nice just to let that all out, especially dealing with a show that you have to deal with a lot of heavy topics. It can weigh down on you. Especially it hit me definitely towards these past couple weeks of like, oh wow, like just the magnitude of the kind of, topics. And I don't want to say you necessarily go numb to it, but we've had this material for so long and you hear it over and over again, and being able to actually watch it, it's like, wow, actually, yeah, craziness. But having breaks, going on walks, sometimes I would just treat myself to a face mask. Any like little things add up, especially like just take care of yourself, because schoolwork will pile up, but making sure that yourself comes first is the most important thing, especially online where you're sitting in front of a camera and screens and there's lights, and that can also really make you really tired, and it can weigh down on you a lot.
Oh yeah. I totally agree with both of you. Yeah, this show has taught me the importance of like eating 2 meals a day. Like you definitely need to eat to keep up your energy. You need to make sure you stay engaged with all your classes. And even about a month ago, I started like adopting running, which I've never been a runner in my life. And so suddenly, I'm after all the rehearsals, I'm just taking an hour and going out on a run just to be able to like decompress, just listen to some music, and just be outside and not in front of a screen all the time. So yeah.
I think we have time for one last question.
Did we lose Sammy?
I think she froze.
Alrighty. Jared, not Kelly, asks, were there any differences working between Zoom and an on-stage performance, such as making mistakes? Were the mistakes made less stressful because of lack of audience members in front of you?
Could you repeat that question? I feel like it was really long and I was like, oh wow.
Jared asks, were there like any major differences working between like a Zoom and a stage performance? For example, like were the mistakes made less stressful because of the lack of the audience members in front of you?
I think working on the show, I treated the show more as like a dress rehearsal than like a show night. Like one where I'm putting my effort forward, but I don't have to be nervous because of the audience. I always find myself like on the as the show opens, I always get like nerves, and like I always just get that that little tingle. But like like recording this, I didn't feel that because I knew it was just the same people watching, and I could just put forth everything I had for this recording. So yeah, I think it definitely helped with the recording, no audience.
I usually get like super ecstatic when I know there's an audience because I'm like, there's a moment when I'll look into the crowd and just see a random face. That's crazy. And so I got huge imposter like syndrome when we had to start recording because it was like, this isn't the show. This isn't like actually happening. Like, what is this? I'm still in front of a screen. Like, what is this? Where it just so there's a different feeling before like performing in front of an actual audience and then performing in front of a screen. Um, but it's still the same nerves when show night came on because it's like, oh wow, people are about to see this for the first time, and like I haven't even seen the finished product, so it was like I still got them, but like on different days. It was kind of weird.
Okay, that is all we have time for here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us at Dog Sees God by Bert V. Royal, presented by SUNY Oswego Theater. My name is Rachel, and we are also joined by Sammy and the tremendous cast. I want to thank our panelists for the hard work and insight tonight. Thank you all for joining us.